All right, Pastor Tyler. My first question for you is how did you come to be in leadership? Were you always in leadership positions, kind of throughout your life, or how did you come to be where you are now?
Sure, man. I've always been a leader. Whether that was sports, whether that was certain friend groups. I always knew that I had a leadership gifting. But of course, it wasn't always for the right reason. Truth be told, about 6 years ago, I got radically saved, radically delivered. And so all I knew in that season was to throw myself into the house of God. And I had a musical gifting, and a worship pastor came along the way and saw that. And so immediately kind of magnetized me his direction and really just pulled me under his wing for a bit. And so honestly, since like the first month of being in ministry, I was pulled into doing some worship leading and being in the band and whatnot. And it's just been one of those things I've never really looked back. A lot of people ask me how I got my start in ministry or in leadership. I just got saved and threw myself into the house of God, and it just came along the way.
Very cool. What are some challenges that just in general that come along with leadership, and maybe some that you personally have faced in leadership?
Yeah, challenges to not get too busy. In leadership, a lot of people will take from you what you're willing to really just say yes to. And sometimes you say yes, you don't even realize it. It's really just a problem with not saying no. You got to learn how to say no in leadership. And so me being married, I'm going on 1 year of marriage next month. And I really have to be very intentional with not being too busy, because outside of just working here at church in the city, my wife and I, we're going, doing other stuff as well. And so we have to be very intentional. So really my answer is just knowing, my mentor says it this way. He says, it's not about finding a balance. It's simply about acknowledging the rhythm of the season, and just being intentional with other things in life besides being a pastor or being a leader. It's like, how much time do you put into yourself? How much time do you put into your marriage? How much time do you put into relationships? So me personally, I'll say this because this is the most fresh testimony that I have. It's really just my biggest challenge has been in my marriage with leadership, with being a pastor. And God, he has worked everything out. It's been incredible. But my wife and I met in leadership. We met in ministry. We met, doing ministry together. And my whole life before her, for a few years, was nothing but ministry, full-time ministry, just on the grind. And so we met, and our whole relationship has been ministry. And so that has really been our biggest challenge, individually and together, has just been really knowing how to just acknowledge the rhythm and flow in that rhythm, and really just be very intentional about pursuing one another outside of leadership. I know I'm getting too pastory when she acknowledges me as pastor. I'm not my wife's pastor, and so I just have to know when, hey, your husband,
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Some of the biggest rewards that you've seen in leadership, just from leading, what would you say are some rewards that you got out of it?
Oh my goodness, souls being saved. I mean, that's the obvious. It's one thing to, it's one thing when the word and the anointing and the fire of God and all these topics. It's one thing for them to be taught. It's a whole other thing when we see it caught, in our students. And when you see, me being a student pastor, when I see my students really just getting it, like starting Bible studies or small movements at their schools, and really just seeing them catching that flame and just really getting it, and just running with it. That really is just my biggest reward, no matter the blood, sweat, and tears, and the heaviness of I'll say the cross, this calling of vocational ministry. At the end of the day, everything. It's so worth it, And along the way, God always. It's like running a marathon. Along the way, you have people handing you bottles of water or things to hydrate you or fuel you, and God knows along the way in your ministerial walk, the small little things that keep you fueled and keep you running, keep you energized. So it's just worth it, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. If you had one thing to, let's just say, tell me a future leader in ministry, a future leader in the church, what would it be?
Yeah, the one thing I always say, man, is to get covered and stay covered. By a father in the faith, by someone who's gone before you, a mentor. Man, just stay covered, really. And that's simply put. I would not be even close to the man that I am and the minister that I am, the husband and future father that I'm going to be, without my covering. So that's it. Just stay covered, man.
Very awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.